Do you want to know what it's like to work in the NIL space? What would it be like if you're a Michigan fan that has the opportunity to work with Michigan players in the NIL space? What if that brand is super, super awesome and it's one that I've been talking about forever? That's what we're going to do. We're going to bring on Scott Schoessel from Wolverine. That is the first work boot company in the country who's worked with several Michigan players in the last year, actually more than the last year. But we're going to talk to him about the initiative with NIL. We're going to talk to him about his thoughts on the team, and also, as someone who lives in Columbus as a diehard Michigan fan, what that's all about. Right here on this Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday. We are back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire. And I should have checked on this beforehand. Scott Schoessel. Am I saying your last name right?
Close enough. It's Schoessel.
Schoessel. I've been saying it wrong for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Actually, not just a week and a half, like a month. And I sat there and told myself, I need to ask if I'm saying that right. Because you've heard the mailbag. It's just a litany of like Bob Smythe. Am I saying that right? Like it's Smith. Oh, and just messing it up. Anyway, Scott Schoessel from Wolverine. That is the boot company. And super excited to have you on, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As you know, big fan of the show. I try to catch all your podcasts on my drive. So yeah, just really appreciate it.
Well, one a week when it's supposed to be 5. So it's we really loaded you up with those. Let's before we get into I want to talk to you about your thoughts on the team and everything. But you're in a very different space, and I plead ignorance constantly on the podcast. You've heard it a million times. If you're out there watching or listening, you've heard it a million times that I don't really know much about the NIL space. I've participated in it somewhat, and that's how Scott and I have come to know each other. But I don't really know much about it. But there's going to be a launch that's coming up here soon. We will let that happen when it happens. But you started off even earlier when Michigan was on its spring trip. Jim Harbaugh and some players came to Bay City for a launch. How did you even get involved with that? And what is that whole experience kind of like for you, especially as a Michigan fan running a company?
Yeah, it's been a very great experience and a quick one. And just to take you back even before spring, our relationship started with Chase Winovich. We reached out to Chase. We at Wolverine loved his story. It's a great hard work story. As you know, anybody who's followed Chase and followed his path at Michigan, what he went through, very blue collar background in Pittsburgh. So really loved Chase. Chase evolved into a relationship with Chase then and Blake. And at the shoot last year with Chase and Blake, Jared Wangler showed up. And I'm telling you, within 10 minutes of meeting and talking to Jared, I knew that we wanted to work with Valiant. We wanted to work with Jared, which is how we got into it. Because when we started in 21, there wasn't really NIL in place. And then as things have evolved, it's become really great. And that blossomed into 2 executions this year. The one program that we have launching right after Labor Day, the Maize and Blue Collar program, which we'll talk about. And then the first one this year was our signing day program. We had several players and Coach Harbaugh in Bay City with us to celebrate students signing their commitment to go into the trades, which was just a fantastic experience. And I don't know how deep you want me to go into that, but what's great about the trades and what was great about that program is trade jobs in the country are really suffering right now. There's just not a lot of kids that consider going into the trades. I think all of us over years have been conditioned that, the only way to go is a 4-year college degree, and trade jobs are booming. We will, over the next 10 years, have somewhere, depending on which source you look at, between 6 and 8 million trade jobs go unfilled. And the synergy with Coach Harbaugh and the team and how they talk about their work ethic And frankly, this concept of celebrating a signing day for those kind of kids was just a fantastic start to this year's program.
I'm really disappointed I missed it. As I told you in person, and I had actually alluded to, I believe on the podcast, that I was going to it. So I was like, I'm going to miss that episode. And then stupid me, moving into this house, decided to try to carry an entire kitchen table in on my own and completely ruptured my lower back. But from everything I saw from it, it seemed like a really cool experience. And then I can attest that with the new launch that you're going to have, I mean, even just being involved in that was a really cool experience. It made me, I mean, I was involved in kind of behind the scenes part of like helping you create marketing stuff, by doing photo. And I walked away by being like, I want to wear Wolverine boots. I want to wear Wolverine gear. I want all of that stuff. And I do want to thank you because you were kind enough to send me some Wolverine boots, and they are the most comfortable boots that I own. They rival my Adidas Ultra Boost that I wear when I go to like Disney or anything like that. And then the 1,000 Mile boots, which are so freaking comfortable, and as well as just incredibly stylish, matches like the kind of chic style that I like to go with. And so that's my own shameless plug on your behalf.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, the product is fantastic. And that's the goal, right? That's why we wanted to work with the Michigan players and coach. But I'll tell you, the NIL space, what's interesting to me is we're all new into the NIL space. I tend to think, based on just what I've studied and been able to read and talking to others in the marketing industry, that Michigan is doing it the right way. And I think while it's sometimes frustrating, I hear a lot of the fans complaining that we're not moving fast enough. I think what Jared Wangler almost single-handedly has done has been amazing in terms of creating Valiant, bringing Valiant into play, and what the program is trying to do in terms of how they interact with organizations is also, I think, the right way. Because I think Michigan is ultra sensitive to doing things number one, the right way, in a great way, and in a way that is building for the kids, the guys in the program, and the school itself. So for me, it's been a very, very enjoyable experience. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I hear a lot of people talking about, this is going to come down to donors. It may in many respects, but I think any organization that has a marketing function that isn't looking at NIL right now is missing out on an opportunity. And that's what's amazing to me. I sit here and I think about former fellow colleagues at Kellogg's in marketing, or if you look at the big three auto brands, Amway, we have such great companies in Michigan. There is enormous opportunity for any one of those companies to jump in with Valiant and really support what's going on and build their brands at the same time.
And I think it's such a great start, because obviously getting into the clothing space and everything like that, that's an easy sell, especially with the idea of, Michigan under Jim Harbaugh has long incorporated the blue collar worker type thing. So it's kind of a natural fit. I mean, it's not only is it that blue collar ethic, and that's the type of, that's the footwear you sell, that's the clothing you sell, but it's also called Wolverine, which obviously makes all of the sense in the world. I do want to talk here in a moment about not only your thoughts on the team, but I mean, you are living in Columbus as a Wolverines fan. I want to get to all of that here in just a moment. All right.
Yep.
Before we do that, listen, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. Now, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Just think about the fact that Michigan needs to go out and get we need a cornerback. We're going to go out and get Josh Wallace. They went to find the right team member, like they did with Olu Oluwatimi last year, like they did with Drake Nugent this year, Ernest Hausman. All those guys in the transfer portal. It's the same type of deal with LinkedIn Jobs. You go to the site. It's super easy to use. You can add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. If you want to be able to have your company win the proverbial championship, just like you want Michigan to do, then you need to be able to find that right hire. And that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Scott. So you are a Michigan fan running this Wolverine company in Columbus, Ohio.
I do. I live in Dublin, Ohio, just northwest of downtown Columbus by 10 miles.
I'm aware the first time I ever went down to that area, I had a friend that was living in Dublin, and we went out to where'd we go? And we went to Yogi's, I believe. And I saw like 4 Ohio State players there. They were having a good time.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting. The neighborhood we happen to live in, there's a lot. The Ohio State presence is enormous, and I've lived there for 13 years. My kids went to high school there. My daughter's going to be finishing up high school. Then I will move back to Michigan. But what's so interesting about it is that it's just, in some ways, I'm a little jealous of it, right? Ohio State is the only thing in Columbus, and the entire community just rallies behind Ohio State. There's no division like between Michigan and Michigan State. And so my kids growing up, I'll just never forget them being Michigan fans, growing up Michigan fans in the belly of Ohio State has been very interesting and fun. I mean, it used to be, I'd drop them off at school on Fridays. Fridays are spirit days. They'd have all their Michigan gear on. And I'd say, fists up, guys, right? You gotta hang tough. But they have developed great relationships. My son is good buddies with Craig Krenzel's son. They both played a lot of baseball together. My daughter is good friends with Tony Alford, who's the running backs coach at Ohio State. Was good friends with his son. They are classmates together. So I used to joke with my brother. My kids used to swim. And Luke Fickle's kids and then Bobby Hoying's kids would also swim. And it'd be Bobby Hoying, me, Luke Fickle standing there at the end of the pool. I remember texting my brother saying, "You think I could get out of here if I pushed him in? What would happen?" But it's a big time program. Obviously, Ohio State is. But yeah, it's been interesting being a Michigan guy in Ohio.
And you don't see a lot of, at least I shouldn't say you. I haven't, when I've gone down there, I haven't seen a lot of people wearing Michigan gear, maybe the odd one here and there. Granted, I'm down there for the game, right? Like aside from the first time I went, I was wearing a Michigan shirt underneath a bunch of stuff. My friend who was down there, we were going bar hopping, and he'd tell everybody like he went to Michigan. I'm like, well, you quiet down. I know. But everyone was really nice. It was the off season, so everyone was really nice. And keeping in mind, I was a student at Michigan in 2006 when they sent out the email, the infamous email of like, do not go on High Street, do not wear Michigan gear, do not drive a car with Michigan plates, all of those disclaimers that Mary Sue Coleman sent out back then. So I was not expecting the hospitality I received down there at that time. But obviously things are a little bit different, especially these last 2 years. So it's got to be a lot of fun for you and your kids.
The last 2 years have been a big relief. The previous 10, not so much, right? But yeah, it's been great.
Well, now you've gotten to know some of these guys on the team. So that's there's nothing more exciting. I can say this as someone who transitioned from being a fan to in the media. There's nothing more exciting than to suddenly get to meet those guys and work with those guys that are actually the ones putting on the winged helmet. What has that experience been for you as a fan to suddenly be like, yeah, Blake, I'm working with Blake Corum. He's right there. Donovan Edwards. What's that experience been like for you?
Unbelievable. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we're in marketing and we need to build our brand. And there were a lot of great business reasons to partner with Michigan. But when you meet the guys, things changed, at least for me, dramatically. On signing day, we were together. I was with Coach for probably 4 or 5 hours. And I'll just start with Coach Harbaugh, just an outstanding person. And, I've heard all the knocks on Coach Harbaugh over the years. And I know sometimes He can be aloof a little bit from a media perspective. But as I sat there and talked to him, he was the most down-to-earth person. We talked kids, we talked leadership. I would be hard-pressed to find another person who cares as much about those that he coaches more than Coach Harbaugh, including his staff. I think he wants the best for his team. He wants the best for all those that root for Michigan. He wants the best for his family. And man, he pours his heart and soul into it. It's just easy to see. And he's just an enjoyable person to be around. Very easy to get to know. I think we hit it off right away. And just in a few hours and talking to him, he gave me some great leadership lessons, which was just fantastic. And then you just turn around and the guys are all sitting there. And the thing that really struck me initially about meeting the guys at signing day, because I had met Blake, and Blake is just simply outstanding. He's a great fit for Wolverine. His grandfather is a farmer. His father's a landscaper. He works with his dad's landscaping crew. So from a Wolverine work boot perspective, Blake is a home run, just on paper. But then you meet him in person, and he's a grand slam. He's just a great guy all the way around. But what stood out to me at signing day was we were kind of quarantined in this classroom because it wasn't active school day, right? And so there were classes going on, and the signing event was in the afternoon. Anytime an adult walked in the room, whether it be a school principal, school employee, a custodian, if one of the players hadn't met them, if Coach Harbaugh hadn't met them, they stopped what they were doing. They got up, they walked over, they shook hands, they introduced themselves. And I just don't think you see that from a lot of younger kids. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an influence, I'm sure, of Coach Harbaugh. I'm sure of how these kids grew up, but they are just as impressive, as good of athletes as they are. My experience has been they're even better people as you get to know them.
Well, it is a team that is full of humility, and it does start from the top down. So that is one of the great elements of this particular Michigan team that's assembled, and it's been that way for a couple of years. Let's get your thoughts on the team here in just a moment. All right, Scott, let's get into your thoughts on the team here. There are certainly it has the look of being a team that can really, really go far. We've been saying championship or bust. From a mixture of your fandom, being around these guys, you've got a little bit more of a 30,000 foot view than maybe even say someone that like me, who's kind of around them a little bit more. And getting, different reports and whatever. What is your view on what this team is capable of?
I think I'll take it right from what Coach Harbaugh said to me and said to everybody at signing day, which is he believes, they believe fully, which makes me believe that they have the license to accomplish every one of their goals, inclusive of winning a national championship. When you talk to a player, and we had 13 at the shoot day that you were at, and we had 4 the day that we were in at signing day in Bay City, they all believe that their goals are attainable, and that is what they are working towards. And I think the thing that was most enjoyable for me, particularly on the shoot day that you were at, is you had a mix of offensive players and defensive players. And man, we've heard a lot about their culture. It was just awesome to sit back and watch those guys, because you could see on a team of 100 kids that they don't know, a lot of them don't know each other. These guys genuinely enjoy being around each other. They like each other. They tease each other. They have what you'd expect. I expected that on the same side of the ball. I didn't expect that with offensive and defensive players being mixed in. I kind of thought there might be some kids that didn't know each other that well. But you can see that the culture, in my mind, is the most exciting thing that I took away from my time with the players and with Coach. Man, they are dialed in. They are playing for each other. They really want to do the best that they possibly can, which brings pressure in. And I asked Blake about pressure, and he's all, bring it on. Donovan Edwards, bring it on. They want it. They are ready to get this season going. And it's pretty easy to get very excited about this team. And I think they're going to do great.
And you bring up an interesting point about the camaraderie, because even I mean, these guys, and they kind of drove together, not all as one, but just in their little groups and everything. But even a guy like Benjamin Hall, who that was my first time meeting him, and he's hanging out with Mason Graham. I mean, that's a freshman running back hanging out with a sophomore defensive tackle who's got a lot of accolades at this point. And that's not necessarily the type of thing you see. And you bring that up of, that's not how all teams are. You can harken back. This is well before the podcast, but I did an interview series with Channing Stribling after he was leaving the team in 2016. So this was spring of 2017. And he was saying that, before Jim Harbaugh arrived, we were very much segregated. We were segregated by offense and defense. We were segregated by race. We were segregated in every way that you can compartmentalize that team. It was. I know that returned a little bit after he left when the team kind of turned over, but that's, I think, a big part of the culture change. So basically that's what you're saying is more evidence of why this team has been successful. What changed in 2021 to make this team successful? And we can sit there and we can talk about X's and O's all we want. We can talk about coaching all we want, but really that is the common denominator for why the last 2 years have been so good and why this year has a lot of promise to be a potential championship year beyond the Big Ten. So last question for you. I know it's probably hard for you to pick a favorite, but you've been around a lot of these guys. Is there one guy that you would sit there and say, that's my guy? That's the dude that I just, if I could bring him down to Columbus with me and hang out with me all the time and, be my buddy. Is there a guy that you would pick that would be that guy?
Well, if I'm in Columbus, I want Chris Jenkins with me. He's got the size that we need down there.
Right.
You're an awesome guy, but truly my favorite is Blake. I mean, he's been the one that I've been able to be around the most. He is just a genuine kid, just a great guy all the way around. You can tell he cares about his teammates. He met my daughter. I think my daughter thinks that she is Blake's best friend, which is awesome. I mean, he's just that. I think you said it earlier. He's got amazing humility. They all do, but Blake, and particularly if I put my marketing hat on, from what Wolverine was built to do, Blake just checks every box. But then when you look at just great people, Blake checks every box. Great sense of humor. Certainly can be intense when he needs to be, and just an unbelievable, unequaled work ethic. From everything I've heard and from what I've seen him, is if he is not the best at something, he will keep going until he is. And he just has been a phenomenal individual to get to know.
It's fun to compare that, like your testimony about Blake. Sarah had obviously a very positive. It was funny watching Sarah trying to, she doesn't know anything about any of these people. She knew who Chris Jenkins was because when she shot the Hawaii game with me, she was like I really liked taking pictures of him in warmups because he made really good faces and he was just I felt my pictures were really good. She didn't know who anyone else was that was there. Blake was one of the guys that she was like, yeah, I feel drawn to. And he was really fun to work with. So
they're all overwhelmingly positive, which is just something that's very interesting. You don't usually have that many kids that are that positive. So that was a really awesome experience.
So I don't need to ask you who your least favorite is. So, cause they're all tied for first or second behind Blake. Nonetheless. All right, Scott. Well, we'll have you back when we launch. I say this as if I'm part of it. When you launch the new initiative here coming up, like you said, around Labor Day. Anyone who's interested, go to Wolverine.com. I mean, just if you're perusing, you're like, that boot looks cool. That boot might be comfortable. That shirt looks cool. It might be comfortable. I'm here to tell you they're better than advertised, which is not a knock on the advertising. It's just that good. And
thank you.
I mentioned, I think on yesterday's episode, Sarah and I went to the Friends Experience at Great Lakes Crossing for our on Friday night. We went to dinner and did all of that. I coordinated my outfit specifically based off the fact that I wanted to wear the I-90 boots.
Awesome.
Those are a work boot with the steel toe and everything like that. But I was like, that's what I want to wear tonight. And so I coordinated it, and that's what I wore. as a result of that. So I'm telling people out there, they're going to want to go to Wolverine.com and get a.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, we are the original work boot. We're the first work boot company in the country. So please check it out. And Isaiah, as always, thank you so much for all the support and being part of the NIL program.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Well, thank you to you, Scott. Thanks to everyone who's watching and or listening. We appreciate you all. We will be back on Thursday. We'll have another guest and we'll get to that when it happens. So thanks for all of that. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.